نريد لبنان ملتقى وفاق عربي.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast here on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamima. These are today's top stories. Syrian government forces gain more ground in the battle for Aleppo as Russia and China veto a UN Security Council resolution seeking a 7-day truce in the battered city. Women hold a silent protest in downtown Beirut over a controversial law that allows rapists to avoid conviction if they marry their victim. And deadly floods in Thailand badly affect southern holiday islands as the country heads into the high season for tourism. Syrian government forces have gained more ground in the battle for Aleppo as Russia and China vetoed a UN Security Council resolution seeking a 7-day truce in the battered city. Russia vetoed the resolution, arguing that ceasefire would allow rebels to regroup and that time was needed for talks between Washington and Moscow. 3 weeks into their offensive, the army and allied militias seized the Kadiaska neighborhood overnight and were in control of about 2/3 of the former rebel territory in East Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the latest advances had left the largest Shahar neighborhood effectively encircled by government forces. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says militants refusing to leave eastern Aleppo will be treated as terrorists, and Russia will support the Syrian government forces by helping to remove them. Lavrov said a ceasefire in Syria's Aleppo will only be possible after Russia and the United States reach an agreement on the total withdrawal of militants from the city. He added that Russia-U.S. forces will coordinate particular routes and a timetable for the withdrawal of all militants from eastern Aleppo. For her part, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said it was a disgrace that the international community had been unable to alleviate the suffering in Syria's besieged city of Aleppo. In a speech to her conservative Christian Democratic Union Party, she said efforts should be made to establish a humanitarian corridor. Gunman stole 60 million Lebanese pounds, the equivalent of $40,000, from a bank in Lebanon's Mitten. A security source said the man stole the money from Crédit Libanais in Mansouriye. The armed men were seen fleeing in a white Jeep Liberty that was reported stolen from the Mitten area of Dequene earlier this morning. An investigation into the incident is underway. 12 women have held a silent protest in downtown Beirut over a controversial law that allows rapists to avoid conviction if they marry their victim. The protest in downtown Beirut's Riyad al-Solh comes a day before the Administration and Justice Committee is scheduled to meet to decide whether to abolish or modify the law. Article 522 of Lebanon's Penal Code states that authorities shall not pursue or prosecute an accused rapist and will overturn the sentence of a convicted rapist if he or she marries the victim. The protest was held to press lawmakers to abolish rather than amend the article, which they said protects the rapists. Lawmakers will discuss a bill proposing the annulment of the law, which MP Eli Kairouz referred to Speaker Nabih Berri in July. The army has detained two suspects in North Lebanon 2 days after a soldier was killed and another wounded in an attack on their post. The military said in a statement that Bassam Taha was arrested on arms charges in Panin, in the northern district of Minieh. It said authorities found a Kalashnikov, a pistol, and a quantity of light ammunition and military equipment in his possession. Brahim Abeid was also arrested in Wadi al-Nahle in Badawi on similar charges. Weapons and military equipment were also found in his possession. Authorities also found hashish and documents that belonged to Syrians and Palestinians during the arrest. Coming up next, our very own Yumna Naufal interviews the 2016 JCI President, Mr. Pascal Dyke. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching the English newscast here on Future Television. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls has resigned after announcing his candidacy for the Socialist nomination in next year's presidential election. Stepping down after serving as Prime Minister for the past 2.5 years, Valls said he would now try to rally the fractured left in the run-up to the party's primary in January. Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve was named as his successor for the next 6 months until the next legislative elections. Moving on to the United States, a winter snowstorm blew through the North Dakota camp where thousands of protesters have gathered to block the construction of an oil pipeline. A day after the federal government ruled against the controversial pipeline, a blizzard sent 40 miles per hour winds whipping through the tipis and tents, causing white-out conditions. Paul Chapman reports.
The autumn's been relatively warm and kind to the North Dakota pipeline protesters. That changed suddenly and icily on Monday. Winds of more than 60 kilometers an hour blasted the protesters' makeshift camp. Temperatures plunged to around -9 Celsius. A coalition of Native American groups, environmentalists and US military veterans are fighting to block construction of the pipeline. They say it would damage sacred lands and any leaks would pollute the water supply of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. The Standing Rock Sioux's chairman is urging the protesters to leave as nothing will happen over the winter before President-elect Donald Trump takes power. The blizzard hit just a day after the US Army rejected an application for the pipeline to go through a tunnel beneath Lake Oahe. Trump's transition team says it supports the pipeline project and will review the Army decision after he takes office.
Floods in Thailand have killed 14 people and badly affected southern holiday islands as the country heads into the December-January high season for tourism. A low-pressure system has brought heavy rain to parts of the south, including islands in the Gulf of Thailand. Floods have also severed the rail link to the south and Malaysia beyond. The authorities said holidaymakers had not been evacuated and flooding had subsided in some areas. JCI celebrated 101 years since its inception as a worldwide membership-based nonprofit organization of young, active citizens ages 18 to 40, dedicated to creating positive change. With alumni that include John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Kofi Annan, Bill Clinton, and many more, today JCI oversees projects in more than 5,000 communities across nearly 120 countries, with members seeking targeted solutions to local problems to create a sustainable global impact. Yumna Naufal has the exclusive with Mr. Pascal Dyke, the 2016 JCI president.
Thank you for tuning in. We have the pleasure to welcome in our studios today the president of JCI, Mr. Pascal Dyke. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
JCI is a worldwide membership-based nonprofit organization of young, active citizens ages 18 to 40, dedicated to creating positive change. Through projects in more than 5,000 communities across nearly 120 countries, members seek targeted solutions to local problems to create a sustainable global impact. And this year, JCI Worldwide celebrates 101 years of impact since 1954. 101 years.
101 years, yes, since JCI started in the city of St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, Missouri, that's true, that's where it started. But JCI Lebanon has 3 chapters, JCI Beirut, JCI Sidon, and JCI AUB.
Correct.
And JCI Beirut was the first chapter to start 10 years ago.
You're right.
So in the last 10 years, what were the biggest achievements in Lebanon?
Thank you very much. Basically, what we do as young people, it's encapsulated in the mission of JCI. The mission of JCI is to provide development opportunities that empower young people to create positive change. So basically, whether it is in Lebanon or in Nigeria or in Japan, wherever JCI members are present, what they try to do is to identify young people who are passionate, provide them necessary skills, exposures, hands-on, to be able to improve themselves and by extension identify problems and challenges in the communities, and like you said, formulate targeted solutions towards addressing them. So therefore, right here in Lebanon for the past 10 years, what JCI Lebanon, particularly JCI Beirut, has focused on doing is to empower young people First, it could be empowerment to ensure that we have the right set of entrepreneurs who understand that they have to find solutions around challenges and turn them into wealth or business. We also focus on training people for personal development.
When you say training people, how does it work? Do you have training centers, or is it the different networks? So, for example, somebody in Beirut can connect to somebody in Nigeria, for example, and they can exchange ideas. So how does it work exactly? Because it's a big community.
The beauty of the organization is our network is presently in 126 countries. And like you mentioned, in 5,000 communities. We have different events in different parts of the world every year. So people and JCI members from Lebanon can travel to Nigeria, can travel to Japan, can travel to the US or to Tunisia, whatever the event is. And we have training programs tailored and designed for JCI members. So when they go to such events, they take part in these trainings, and then they come back to their countries and try to share that with other members. So yes, we have training centers in some countries, but basically JCI also has what we call the Skills Development Unit, where we develop trainings that addresses the needs of our members and the needs of other young people in different parts of the world.
Right, you talk about the skill development unit.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm guessing every single country or every single community has different skills that you need to hone.
Definitely.
So when you think of Lebanon specifically, and I'm sure when people think about Lebanon, they cannot but take into account the turmoil that the country is facing with neighboring wars, and as well as a lot of younger people being disenchanted, feeling discouraged because of the situation. So how do you decide, okay, these are the skills I want to work on with the Lebanese youth, and what are they?
Thank you. We have what we call the JCI Active Citizens Framework. It's a framework which helps us identify the needs and the challenges that exist in different communities. So what we do first is deploy these needs to understand if the need in the community is unemployment, or if it's something that has to do with empowerment, or has to do with education, or has to do with health. And then when we identify what the needs are, we formulate solutions and then look for partners who can work with us, deploy those solutions, do an evaluation to see if the solution is sustainable. So that is a framework that's been adopted by a lot of other international organizations, but it's our framework that we designed and developed. So that helps us identify what the needs are. What the need is in Lagos, where I live, might not be the need in Beirut. So that helps us to identify targeted needs and be able to formulate targeted solutions to them.
As president of GCI for 2016,
yes,
you've traveled to different countries.
Correct.
And you've probably met different youth.
Yes.
How can you compare what we have in Lebanon compared to other countries or other communities?
Beautiful. This is my 55th country this year traveling to.
All right.
And like you said, the needs are quite different.
Only 55?
55, I'm still traveling.
Oh my God. You didn't do the 126?
I'm still traveling.
Yeah.
I don't think I have that energy to do that in 1 year. But the beautiful thing is...
You're ending it on a good note this year, right? Is this the last
exactly.
country of the year?
No, I still have about 5 more countries to do. And then I'm going to close it out.
Okay.
Now, basically, we've seen that the needs of young people are different in different countries. This year we initiated a campaign we call Peace is Possible campaign, and it's a campaign we're taking to different parts of the world, particularly where there are challenges and conflicts and crises. And of course, the neighboring countries around Lebanon, of course, you know what is happening, and we've taken that message to tell young people
the Syrian refugee influx is affecting a lot of young people.
We must see what we can do to be able to help the situation. And one of the things we've done is we'll go to some of these refugee camps to be able to teach young people, to be able to be hopeful for the future. Some of them are out of school because of the conflict. So what do? We'll try to get people to go there to teach them so they don't lose completely. We'll try to provide, clothing materials, food materials, support shelter, and all of that.
Have you worked, I know that GCI has partnered with a few Lebanese, it's been sponsored, but it's also partnered with a few Lebanese stakeholders in order to help out. Can you mention a few? Have you worked with any of the ministries, for example?
There are a number of ministries that's been worked, but that's something that's happening here in Lebanon. And since, I'm not a member of GCI in Lebanon, I don't have those specifics.
All right.
There are quite of them.
We'll get the president of GCI Lebanon.
Stay tuned for part 2 of the interview in our next bulletin. And on that note, we end today's bulletin. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Syrian government forces gain more ground in the battle for Aleppo as Russia and China veto a UN Security Council resolution seeking a 7-day truce in the battered city. Women hold a silent protest in downtown Beirut over a controversial law that allows rapists to avoid conviction if they marry their victim. And deadly floods in Thailand badly affect southern holiday islands as the country heads into the high season for tourism. Those are your headlines for this Tuesday. I'm Linda Tamim, and I thank you all for watching.
نريد لبنان ملتقى وفاق عربي.